Hi, good evening. Today is July 1st. One interesting note, SME Group has removed the trading hold for trading hours between 3:15 and 3:30 Central on all their equity index products, which is a good thing for now, but I hope that they don't go full crypto and don't start trading 24/7 on all their index products because, it's trading around holidays and weekends is not exactly so much fun. I don't know how crypto traders do it, but I like to have a break. S&P 500 is up around 15% through today, Thursday. And we had our best first half of the year since 1998. And S&P is up 5 trading months in a row, as well as 5 quarters in a row. So if you look at the statistics for the S&P being up 5 months in a row, it's very bullish. Out of 26 samples, only one was down, and the rest were up on average 13% 1 year later. So year over year, it seems a year later seems rather bullish statistics since 1950. And on a daily basis, S&P is up 6 days in a row and made new highs 6 days in a row. So looking back, it's also not a very common occurrence, but in the last 5 years, all previous occurrences also have been very bullish for the last 5 days. Most of them closed higher in the last 5 days, in the next 5 days. Mm-hmm. But tomorrow is July 2nd, we will get payroll reports and we'll see what happens. But we had inflation numbers coming in rather high. For example, the rents have increased at the highest level month over month, as well as prices for the housing increased a lot on the highest rate month over month. At the same time, the grains, soybeans, and other commodities, including oil, obviously, everything is going up. So it seems like the question whether inflation is transitory or not is a little more complicated, because whether the rate of increases will continue as it has been, probably not. So the inflation rate of increase will probably slow down, but the inflation itself is probably will stay here and continue, as there is still lots of indications of shortages of multiple goods. Anywhere I go, prices, people are short of stock, and various simple items that I used to buy on Amazon, some of them are actually almost double in price. So it's like even I'm noticing that when I usually don't even look that much. So it seems that the inflation is here to stay, and a big component of that is the labor or wage inflation. Employees having hard time filling positions, and people who are hired are demanding higher wages. So now they're paying large bonuses, and pretty much anywhere I talk to, the people are telling me that the labor market is very tight. And so tomorrow's report, if it comes in hot, it may be not good for the market, because then people would think that Fed finally would follow up with their threats and tighten.
I know a lot of people that are, I would say very good traders, as well as they money managers who they've been trying to short this thing all the way up, and obviously had their head handed to them each time they've done that, because it's just been, it's not been this kind of choppy market where shorts work. And the last time it's really worked was in the fall last year, where we had some normal correction type activity, a couple of these corrections in September and October. And we really haven't seen anything since then. We've had a few days where it's been down, maybe 2-3 days in a row, but nothing. And as Yelena was saying, it's been up for 5 months, and it's also been up at least 5% in each of those 5 months. So that's just really extremely bullish. So it's been hard to be short. However, the thing that I'm looking at, I would like to take advantage of some kind of reversal trade if I can, And the payroll report tomorrow might be a really good opportunity for that. So something I like to watch for is this kind of fake out kind of activity. And right now we've got these are these walls where there are like a lot of calls positioned that are short. And so at least in theory, if you believe this, this kind of option theory, that not that it's driving the market, but that it does help predict where we're going to see support and resistance levels. There might be some places here like 43.15, 43.24 on ES. Obviously, SPX closed a little higher, like 43.19, but on ES, that it could pop a little bit, and then kind of hit one of these levels. And so a good place to enter a position would not be just go short the market, but rather short right under one of these levels. And then you also have a good stop, which would be a bit above those levels. So that's just as a way that I think about it. These payroll reports are often good places to trade for a reversal because it seems bullish, but then the market, as the market kind of really absorbs it, it's not that bullish.
Right, but your vol trigger level is around 42.50 level. So as long as we're above 42.50, it's still bullish longer term.
Oh yeah, I'd agree. It's just the it's hard to. I wouldn't try to trade on the short side for more than a very momentary
Right.
kind of trade. It's not that kind of market right now.
Yes, like you said, the best first half a year since 1998. So it has been extremely bullish, which is amazing, given that we had pretty much half the country shut down for quite a long time. And now the Delta variant is making its new threats again. And now Biden is creating some special CDC commission or some other commission specifically for this particular variant. I'm not sure why this variance is so special to have a special commission, but it seems like the world is beginning to think about shutting down again. I mean, I can't even imagine it, but it looks like there are some rumblings of that in Europe, and California again is telling people to wear masks even if you're vaccinated.
The thing I would point out, though, it's interesting that year, 1998, best first half of the year since 1998. I mean, the second half of 1998 wasn't so good, right? Because there was the Thai baht blew up in the fall of 97. And then it was right around like June that we had the Russia debt default. And so that caused a lot of these like long-term capital management to start unwinding. And I remember that very well. Simultaneous with that was the impeachment trial. Well, not the impeachment, all these revelations about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and so on. And this was sort of shaking the market on top of the news of these debt defaults and long-term capital management. That all of these yields globally would converge, but instead they blew apart. And so you had like the 29-year bond, US bond, that theoretically it should trade at a very slight discount to the 30-year bond, but it was, they were all over the place. And it blew that fund up. So it's not to say that, I'm not saying that, I'm not predicting that same kind of outcome, but nobody would have thought that in the beginning of July.
Well, nobody's thinking that right now either, because the junk bonds yields are just hit the new lows yet again. So there is no fear in the markets at all, while at the same time, the Fed is threatening to tighten. And like Kaplan just recently said that He thinks the Fed should start tightening sooner rather than later. And he also thinks that the market knows that Fed taper is coming. It's just a question of when. But, it's a silly thing to say. We all know the end of the days is coming. Of course, the main question is when. And
On the other hand, I do recall, right in the middle of that 98 crisis, I remember pumping gas going up my gas tank for 69 cents a gallon of unleaded gas, and the world it wasn't just concerned about this financial crisis, but an actual like debt deflation, and that there was this deflationary vortex that was being opened up by these debt defaults and so on. And so the Fed reacted to that by cutting and so on very aggressively, like three cuts in a row. And then there was this day in October when it looked like things were really going to crash, and there was a Greenspan put, as it was called, where he swooped in and saved the market at the last minute on a Friday on an option expiration day. And, the market went up, I don't know, 10, 20% in one day, or 10%, something like that, and crushed the shorts. But it was just the opposite in terms of the macro setup, that it was the fear was deflation, not inflation. So I think that changes the dynamic a lot. That some of these risk assets, the reason why reason why money's pouring into them is they're inflation hedges to some degree.
Right, and the macro data, like you said, is coming in below expectations. It keeps coming in below expectations, but the market doesn't care. We had PMI report that came in at 60 versus the 66 versus 70 expectations, and 75 the month before. So there's just one example of the macro data being negative. And just to add to a scary chart of the day, if you look at this chart I just shared, 4 out of the last 6 days, we had market making new all-time highs, S&P, as the number of stocks trading above 50-day moving average was less than 50. So the market is kind of running on fumes. So unless the rest of the stocks start participating, the risk of a sell-off is high. But again, this is only a chart of a crime of small numbers, only a couple of occurrences. But nonetheless, most of the time those occurrences happen, the market sold off, although this is not a timing tool. It could take a lot longer for the market to oscillate here than we think.
Yeah, some of these, like the declining breadth, that can often take a long time to resolve. I mean, it seems to go on much longer than it should, and then there is a bear, and it all seems to make sense in retrospect, but it would sort of last for longer than people expect, right?
Right, exactly. Market only cares about all the world news, and we had plenty in the last couple of days when we didn't have a podcast. Well, just today alone, Trump organization and its CFO is charged with a tax crime, which they found some super minor thing that he didn't pay taxes on some fringe benefits. And again, that's after pouring all of the resources they had, all of the time and all of the hatred into trying to bring him down, impeachments, multiple committees, etc. All they found is his CFO, who's, I think, just released on bail for some minor crime. So maybe they should put their money into a little more important issues, like the Bill Cosby, for example. He's out on bail, out from jail. He's literally free on technicality, where everybody admitted he is guilty, but because somehow his due process was violated based on some nonsensical procedural issue, he is now out. So maybe prosecutors and the US government could focus on that. I'm not sure where Me Too is stance on this is, but to me it seems a little more important, but
Yeah, well, one of the things I think is kind of creating some maybe, and it's not so obvious in the market, but one of the news stories that I think is a little bit creating some inflation fear, because in my view, inflation is more about a breakdown in trust than it is. Like we can look at these indicators and so on, and prices paid and so on, and that's kind of backward looking, but I think that the breakdown of trust is what creates the inflation expectation. And the New York City mayoral election has turned into a real fiasco. That they had included something like 135,000 so-called test ballots, and by removing these, they implemented this ranked choice voting system, which was going to take longer to count anyway, I guess. But by including these test ballots, it completely changed what it looked like the leader of the Democratic side candidate was. And so now that they've taken those out, the leader has changed. It's someone that's maybe kind of less police friendly and so on. And so, but I think that this type of thing, it creates this feeling of, it's like something's broken in the system and we can't really trust the result. And this is sort of the backdrop that I think we're seeing. There are obviously implications of that in the 2020, 2016 earlier elections, but this is I think part of the story with the trust breaking down a little bit.
I think we really live in a post-truth society. There's no more absolute truth. When, for example, the Democrats come in and with a straight face tell us that it's Republicans who wanted to defund the police, that it was a Republican idea, how do you even take anything they say seriously at all? I mean, I just don't watch the news altogether, because everybody knows the riots were happening mostly in the liberal cities, mostly by Antifa and super liberal progressives, and they all wanted to defund the police. They're the ones who actually defunded the police, the most progressive and liberal cities. Now they see crime increase and they complain and they blame Republicans for defunding the police. So, what else can you say? And at the same time, we have billionaire David Geffen, I think. He just donated $150 million to Yale University to make its drama school tuition free. And I don't even know what to say. I thought we have enough drama queens here with all the microaggressions and everybody's whining on the little tiniest thing. And I thought we don't have enough engineers. I mean, we have buildings collapsing, maybe not enough doctors, we have pandemics, maybe researchers, but apparently no, we just simply don't have enough actors. So now we need more drama queen students, and at Yale, of all universities. So, that's what does it tell you for the future? Longer term, it doesn't sound promising when you don't have enough productive people and everybody's just want to be an actor.
Well, it's like it's in a way, it's there's like a kind of decadence has seeped in where every man a Romanov, where they would hire consultants to help them make perfectly formed turds and things, right? Where in their last days, and it wasn't they weren't exactly focused on running the country, and we've kind of a little something's broken down somewhere if the focus is fewer engineers that design good buildings and more drama students.
The Gates Foundation just recently pledged over $2 billion for gender equality, because they think that prioritizing gender equality is not only the right thing to do, it's essential to fighting poverty and preventing disease. And again, I must be missing something, because I thought that disease is gender neutral and doesn't differentiate what it is, and poverty kills both genders. But what do I know? And by the way, I have a very cheap and free, easy solution. I think Bill Gates should just hire me as a consultant. If you want to prove gender equality, it's very simple and free. We have Olympics coming up, and we have lots of other sporting events. I recommend that we remove all of the genders from all sporting events, right, and let all genders compete equally. Otherwise it's really sexist. So
why do we need sex-specific sports? I mean, exactly. Men's and women's teams. I mean, just make it all one team, right?
And besides, we have about 200 genders by now, so we need to have all in one. male, female, gender, binary, gender unbinary, gender neutral, and whatever else undecided genders. Just let them all compete. I'm sure we're all equal, and let's see what happens.
Well, the reason, I mean, in fact, the effect of the Title IX has been to reinforce these and the gender specificity, because of how the funding has to be balanced across all these groups and so on. And so the schools have gone the other way on that. And now, that type of question is actually being asked. Well, why do we need any kind of gender in this election? And it threatens the whole Title IX, all the legal system. And most universities might have, 5 or 6 lawyers just for Title IX. So it's like, how do you reform the IRS when there are 1 million accountants in the United States? You can't.
Right.
There's a lot of people that depend on the system staying as it is, and it's the same thing with Title IX and all of the diversity industry. That there are a lot of people that depend on that industry staying just as it is.
Right. And every time they talk about this gender equality, they talk right away about the boardroom. We need more female CEO and more female this and that. Yeah, boardroom is great, but what about the trash room? Why nobody talks about we need more female garbage collectors, or more female oil rig drillers, or more female electricians or plumbers, or any of the other hard labor work that nobody talks about. So men should just take that and suck it up, but the best positions should be all equal. As it is, we don't have equality. More women are going to college now than men. Shouldn't we start discriminating to bring that back to equality? Where do you even stop? And I think race is going to be next. With reparations, you'll be proving what percentage of what race you are, using 23andMe. So I think I'm like maybe 2% Black, so maybe I'll get 2% of the reparations.
Right. It's hard to separate the kind of the signal from the noise and all of this, and understand what's just somebody saying these things, or this is just the sensation on Twitter today, and what is actually being taken seriously. It's really hard to separate that sometimes and not get caught up and all of this. But
speaking of Twitter and sensationalism, Elon Musk tweeted today that the economic prosperity that China has achieved is truly amazing, especially in infrastructure. I encourage people to visit and see for themselves. Well, I mean, sure, they have achieved prosperity because they're a totalitarian regime. They don't need to have all of those environmental regulations we have. They don't need to have any of the rules of law. They could just get some slave labor from other lower caste people and build whatever they want. They do what they want. So it's another amazing thing that's happening right now, that the richest 1% of this country, it's kind of bowing to the China Communist Party, because their income is so intertwined with China that they completely betrayed America in favor of China.
Well, let me add to that. It was scary to see, and mind you, I mean, it was kind of scary, this comment that Charlie Munger made on China, that where he was asked about by someone interviewing him about what the government did to silence Jack Ma, who is the CEO of Alibaba. And Jack Ma is, from what I can tell, kind of very much like a US style entrepreneur, where he built the company out of nothing. And it's more of a marketplace. It's kind of like a combination of eBay and whatever, Google shopping or whatever. And you can pretty much buy anything there. And he wanted to get into banking, and that's the point where he got shut down. But Munger had said that he praised the Chinese government for silencing Alibaba's Jack Ma in a recent interview, adding that he wishes US financial regulators were like those in China. And communists did the right thing. Munger, the 97-year-old longtime friend of Warren Buffett, said about the handling of Ma. he said that yeah, you're not. They just called in Jack Ma and said you aren't going to do it, Sonny, and that he would not want all the Chinese system, but I would certainly like to have the financial part of it in my own country. So this is someone that is respected in the financial community, making this kind of declaration where it's really they like a lot of the Chinese system. They like the command and control aspect of it, and the top-down control of the economy.
Right, they're all crony capitalists, and Munger including. Has the world forgotten what happened to AAG when it was about to blow up and the government bailed them out, or the whole bunch of puts that Buffett had wrote and that were about to get should have been paid, but then he spoke to our the Fed chair, whoever was at the time, Bernanke, I think, and all of a sudden the market rallied, or a whole bunch of other things. They're just crony capitalists. Without government subsidies, they all would have perished by now. That includes.
Well, and I would point out that just a few weeks ago, as we talked about on this show, that Charlie Munger made some very negative comments about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency recently, and that it's what do you call it? That it's anti-American, anti-patriotic, a threat to our to the dollar and so on. And but this is what his real allegiance is to. He doesn't want people to have any kind of freedom. That you start a company, the government will decide whether you start that company or not you.
Right.
And, if the government will decide, well, you're not going. That type of bank is okay, but not this type of bank. And so that's it's very consistent, I think, with his views on crypto, where it's really people that have been frustrated with the financial system as it is, and they're trying to build an alternative to it. Whether or not that's always well considered, whether Dogecoin is the future or not, I mean, that's a different matter. But a lot of these are just experiments to find an alternative.
But Elon Musk is another one who capitalizes on that.
Right.
He promoted Dogecoin, and I just saw statistics today because Robinhood has filed for IPO. 34% of cryptocurrency transactions are in Dogecoin. That is an insanely large number. So it's not just like 5-10%, which I thought of 3% maybe as a joke. More than 1/3 of all transactions in Robinhood are in Doge. So the people are stuck in there.
Well, that I would say this, okay, let me comment on that. I think that Dogecoin and the idea of it being kind of fun and harmless coin, it's fun. And it's something that Elon Musk likes, and he's rich, and maybe I can make money with him. I think that it brought in a lot of people that had never touched it before, any kind of crypto, and they view something like Bitcoin trading at 33,000, nearly 600, which is a little bit less than 50% off its high. That's how can I buy a whole Bitcoin? I can buy 1 million Dogecoin, or maybe not 1 million anymore, but I can buy 10,000 of it or something like that. And about how much Bitcoin can I buy? 0.03 or something. So that's what I think there's kind of a scaling problem in a way, and like a numerator problem that people, for whatever reason, when there's like a stock split, people think, well, I got free money or something. No, you just got 2 nickels instead of a dime. You didn't get any more money, but people think that because the units are greater, that somehow they have more of something.
Right, but Elon Musk contributes to the promotion of this fool's gold. Instead of promoting the actual gold, he's telling people, like in 1800s, buy fool's gold because it's cheaper and you could buy more of it.
Well, the thing I would note though is that, okay, so if we look at Bitcoin, I'm showing an hourly chart right now. What I thought was interesting is there's this kind of support and resistance line that Bitcoin rallied really nicely up to above 36,000. Like it kind of moved around here for a little bit and then pulled back, but it's not, hasn't retested these lows or anything. So I think that it's actually kind of bullish. It's making higher highs and higher lows now. We're breaking that trend that we were seeing before. But what I think is interesting here to watch is, okay, so Bitcoin still kind of I would say neutral or tilted bearish until it can really rally above this line and then finally get it back above 42,000. But look at something like the biggest so-called alt, which is Ethereum. It actually it's rallied a little better off its low than Bitcoin has. And in fact, this ratio has rallied really nicely. But if you look at Dogecoin, it looks worse. And in fact, if we look at the ratio, then yeah, so it's this isn't a very long series. Actually, we might want to get Doge BTC, get it off of Binance. Yeah, so it's well off its high, and it's probably, in my view, going to go lower. In my view, it's kind of topped out, and it's not. It's people buying it now, or maybe thinking they're getting something cheap, but this is not. It's not rallying, unlike Ethereum, which has been rallying pretty nicely the last few days. And even Bitcoin, I think, is it's likely going to bounce here. I see that being much less in something like Dogecoin. So there will be some other stupid meme coin that rises out of the ashes or rises out of the dust. But I think that this one is kind of maybe played out a little bit. And when this stops rallying 30% on an Elon Musk tweet, then he'll move on to some other thing, I think.
But yeah, Elon Musk, the champion of freedom, was praising China. It's amazing. I guess maybe he wants subsidies from Chinese governments as well. The American subsidies are not enough for him.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how these very wealthy people have interests that seem more aligned to a Chinese style authoritarianism than what historically been U.S. freedom, relative freedom, and belief in free markets and so on. That they've kind of they may not be telling all of what they think, but they seem to have moved to some other mindset. That
Ray Dalio is another one who was defending China. So it's all those billionaires. They just want to invest into China and benefit themselves to the detriment of the American people. I mean, look what happened to American industries, steel. I mean, pretty much go to Pennsylvania, and now President in chief probably doesn't remember how his own town used to look when he started in politics. It was an industrial hub, and now it's all hollowed out, just like his memories. But
well, I think that where it became really obvious to me was it was a few years ago when there were these protests in Hong Kong against the desire of the Chinese government to restrict some of the freedom of expression rights, free speech rights there, and reduce the right to protest and so on. And Hong Kong had traditionally had a very strong pro free speech movement there, and so people came out, and the Chinese government was cracking down on this, and I forget the person's name, but he was like in the coaching staff of the Houston Rockets, but they get something like $1 billion of their annual revenue from China. That because Yao Ming, is obviously he's now in China as a star, but he was a U.S. basketball player for a long time and had built up a huge fan base there as a result of that. And that person was fired, and then some players like LeBron James or whatever were asked what they thought about this, and they criticized people for criticizing China like leave them alone,
Right. They can
So
only kneel in America. Go kneel in China.
right, right. So who are we to comment on what China's doing? But I think that that's part of what's to touch on China. I think that's part of what continues to weigh on Bitcoin more so than Ethereum or some of the others. And but I think it's slowly resolving because the hash power is starting to come back. It's taking time though, so it's pretty precipitous drop, but started this kind of a little bit of a rebound. But I do think that the hash power is starting to come back in other locales, and that will once this trend changes a little bit, I think we'll see a good rally. But I think it's part of what's suppressing Bitcoin and therefore all crypto right now. I don't think it's going to go back to a little bit of the kind of the frothiness or the mania that existed a little bit earlier this year, where people were piling into the Dogecoin and Shiba Inu and whatever, Bunny Coin and so on. I think it's going to be a cooler market for a while, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that some of the people that piled in at the last minute in say April and May, they got killed, and a lot of people did, surprisingly. So looking at the percent supply and profit, and that this was obviously when it's hitting new highs, it's going to be 100%, but this is now just a bit above 70%. So that means that 30% of the supply is not in profit. That's a big change from earlier this year. It's a big shift, and there's an underlying change in sentiment too. We're seeing very negative sentiment right now. So I think that it's slowly, and what we've seen here from all the chopping around is that this is a net unrealized profit and loss, and this has actually continued to trend down a little bit because people are selling. It pulls back and they sell at a loss. They're fearful. They're not willing to hold through a pullback, and so this has continued to trend down even as Bitcoin has maybe bounced a little bit. So it's not. It's moved down more aggressively than Bitcoin has. Let's put it that way. So I think that there could be. It might take a few more weeks, but there will be a bounce back above this level. But then where it goes from there, I think it could take another few months altogether to work out of this bearish cycle. I think that one of the things that I've maybe hammered on a little bit that I would encourage people to look at, I do think that the best place in crypto to invest, given that things are off their high by 50% or more, it is definitely in the bigger cap coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I do think that some of these decentralized finance coins are worth investigating too. And I think that's some of those are 70 or 80% off their highs. And so there could be some good value there. But it would take a little bit of research, and maybe in a future podcast, we can talk through what are some of the metrics to look at for that.
Sounds good. We will be back on Tuesday. So we wish everybody to have a great celebration of 4th of July, to celebrate what a great country America is, unlike what the media tries to tell you. It's still one of the best countries in the world. So
Happy Independence Day.